one man following events with considerable interest, I suspect, is called Joe Root, who is a young Yorkshire opener who's been selected for England's Test tour to India this winter. Joe Root, good afternoon to you.
Afternoon, you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine. Congratulations. Great stuff.
Thanks, thank you very much.
Right. When did it all start? When did you first pick up a cricket bat?
I think I got shoved one in my hand when I was about 2 weeks old.
Well, yeah. Was it your dad who looked at you and thought, he's a boy, he's going to be a cricketer?
I think he'd premeditated it as soon as he found out I was going to be a boy. So.
Is he a cricketer himself?
Yeah, he plays club cricket at Sheffield Collegiate for a number of years, and
right.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I learnt my trade down there, watching him play on the sidelines with my brother.
As he bowls to Root, who picks him up over deep mid-wicket, and that is going to be just 6. It just carried over the ropes, and that was a fine shot, a really meaty blow. I said, did he have the power? He did there. He's cleared the ropes, which is quite a long boundary out to deep mid-wicket.
England 139 for 5.
England have finished it on 199 for 5, but it is a day that Joe Root will remember for the rest of his life.
Joe, it's all been a bit of a whirlwind. How's the England experience been so far?
Oh, it's been fantastic. Obviously a great learning opportunity, and got a taster with the first 3 test matches, and now to finally get an opportunity has been, phenomenal. And
who was it who gave you the fantastic news then the day before?
Alistair Cook gave me the news, which is obviously nice to receive, and just really proud.
And I'm sure you've always had dreams of playing in that first test match. They might not have involved coming to the wicket at 119 for 4, England under pressure, but was your plan at that point just to try and get in bat time?
Yeah, I mean, it was just to try and be positive with my footwork and speak to Kevin and sort of just get in, really.
Kevin Pietersen told us you were smiling when you came to the wicket. Did Test cricket feel any different?
Not really. I mean, it was great to get out there and be batting with Kev, because he made it very very welcoming, very light-hearted.
And just finally, Joe, I mean, lots of people have made this point. There was a young man called Alistair Cook who made his debut in Nagpur as a 21-year-old and has gone on to fantastic things. What's he had to say to you about before the match and obviously in the match and what you've done?
Just really encouraging, really. More than anything, just trying to help me out and get me in a good frame of mind to go and perform the best I can, and just try and do what I can to help the team out.
259 for 4. Root on 96. Bracewell goes into bowl to him now, and that's nurdled away down towards third man, and there it is. Root's first Test 100 on a Saturday at Leeds in front of his home crowd. Huge roar goes up, and he gets a hug from Bairstow. A milestone in any cricketer's life, and possibly the first of many for Joe Root. A maiden Test match 100.
Root on 97. There's a short leg, a slip, and in goes Herath from this end, the nursery end. He bowls on the leg stump, tucked away into the leg side. There's 3 here, I reckon. Let's see. It might only be 2. The fielder's giving chase. The crowd really want Root to turn and come back for the 3rd. Here he comes. The throw on the bounce. And look at Joe Root celebrate this return to the England team. Dropped for the final test of the Ashes. He's back for the first test of the summer and celebrates with 100 not out. And Matt Prior, another in rehabilitation, as it were, who's coming back into the fold, gives him a great hug and says, well done. And all around Lords, those that remain, there's still a fair number, thousands, 20,000 maybe, are on their feet.
Henry bowls to Root, and Root dropped it into the offside. A bit of hesitation. They run through. Shot at the stumps at the striker's end is unsuccessful. It goes down towards fine leg, and Joe Root, with a very iffy single, has made his double 100.
Root on 99. Here comes Daryl Mitchell bustling in. Root steps forward, looks to chop, could have chopped him up to his stump, but it's running away down to the final leg boundary for 4. And Joe Root looks a little sheepish as he then hugs Ollie Pope. But he's done it. It is another 100 in the career of Joe Root. 100 number 27. Now he kisses the badge. Now he raises both arms. And that familiar smile is back again. Consecutive hundreds, back-to-back innings for Joe Root for the 3rd time in his career.
Joe Root, open stance. Taps his bat down. He gives himself room. He carves it out to the cover. And Joe Root goes to 34 Test hundreds. He jumps in the air, he raises his bat to the crowd. Everyone up on their feet to witness a man do something that no other England player has done before. We salute you, Joe Root.
He is quite simply England's greatest. And it's absolutely right. He should have the record on his own. Take it in, Joe. We are watching a genius.
2 days ago, 33, here you are, 34th. Well done.
Cheers, thank you.
Explain to a batting dunce what batting nirvana actually is. I mean, are you literally just standing there and just playing and not really having...
There. It's as if you're like hovering outside of your body and it's just doing it on autopilot. And I think it only really happens 4 or 5 times in your career. But that's what you're always searching for. And you, when you go out and you practice and you do all the work and drills, that's what you're trying to get yourself in that place where you can just be on autopilot. And, you know, if it doesn't work out, you just got to... I guess that's a way of trying to keep improving and getting better. And that's sort of a driver for me, is every day can I get closer to that state where you feel like it's just happening automatically.
Root on 67. He needs 4 runs. He's waiting now, bat raised. Jamal on his way, scuttles in, bowls to him, and he drives straight down the ground. It's beaten the mid on field to win a chase here for him. The ball's creeping towards the boundary. It's just going to make it. And Joe Root has done it. He's become the highest scoring Englishman in Test match history. And he's done so undemonstrably. Does he know? There's no raising of the bat, there's no kissing of the badge, there's no jumping up and down. He's already hit more centuries than anybody else. And now in his 147th Test match, he's beaten Sir Alistair Cook's record of 12,472 runs. And I must say, it's highly likely that whatever Root's final tally will be, it'll never be beaten. There we go. And you can hear... Actually, I was looking to my left at Andy Zaltzman, thinking, have we miscalculated here? I mean, has it actually been... Because when you listen back to all those celebrations, he's jumping about, he's celebrating, he's waving his cap around. Literally nothing. Alistair Cook, good morning.
Morning, Aggers. Morning, Zaltz.
Well, it's lovely to have you joining us. Let's start with that point. I don't know if you were watching or listening or quite what, but there was absolute silence. There was absolutely no celebration whatsoever. It was all rather strange. Are you surprised by that?
Well, I actually was watching it. Sorry, Aggers, I wasn't listening to you at that time.
That's okay.
And yeah, and when you said, did he know? Well, quite clearly he would have known that. You just do, don't you? But what a shot to do it with, and what a kind of like, I suppose, probably for Rooty now that he's probably got bigger fish to fry.
Does that seems to be the message, doesn't it? That could well be it. That he's got higher targets in mind.
Absolutely, and I think that it is that kind of. I don't know whether what he is. What his exact, his exact aim is in cricket, but he had just not lost that hunger, has it? That hunger and that desire to keep on scoring runs. Where, I'd have thought, I wondered whether the captaincy and going back into the ranks, which is not an easy thing to do. I struggle with it, but there's certainly something missing from my game, and actually, almost it's taken him almost to another level of consistency. And we'll probably look back at that shot. I keep thinking about something. That shot against Bumrah in India.
Yes.
That reverse sweep, that infamous shot, which since that moment, I think Zaltz will probably correct me, it was averaging 75 or something, which is extraordinary numbers for a player, like at that kind of level he is at, with 12,000 Test runs to go again almost, as if that was kind of a bit of a reality check for him. And I've never seen that hunger and determination and kind of that relentlessness in anyone's batting, really. But he does it in such an elegant way.
Yeah, I mean, he just looked so focused today. We talk about that Bumrah shot. I think I mentioned it in there as well, that we're unlikely to see it today, because you just see he just had he was on a mission today. But yet, with that lack of celebration, it seems as if actually, with Root has always been the case. It's the team that comes first, and this is just a milestone along the way.
Yeah, and also great players recognise moments when it's in their favour, and you've got to make the difference, and you've got to cash in. And just over the last couple of days, this pitch is a great pitch for batting. There's a bit of talk about those cracks opening up, but they don't seem to do nothing. This is when you dip your bread, isn't it? This is when as a world class operator that Joe Root is one of the best. He's gonna dip his bread and make. Batting is never easy, but you have easier moments. And the ball's 40 odd overs old, you're on 70 odd. I always almost can call it a Joe Root sometimes when he bats. It's like there's never inevitability about his first get to 10, and you think, well, he's on today. And I felt that pretty much in this innings, even yesterday when he went out there. It's just been only probably one or two plays and misses, which is he's just extraordinary. The only thing I'm trying to think what makes him different to like every other English player now, and interesting results. How many times he gets in compared to other players? Because we talk about batting, like the hardest thing as a batsman is those first getting to 10. That's when it's hardest. I mean, you're trying to get the pace of the wicket, the pace of the ball, all that kind of stuff. Getting in is hard, and I just think he gets in more than anyone else. So that ability to and I might be wrong, but that kind of ability to get to 20-30, he seems to find that level of consistency, that level of his technique doesn't change too much. He might be fiddling a little bit around. I know he is a fiddler, but he might fiddle around a little bit. But to be so consistent all the time with his rhythm and technique, that is a skill amongst itself. And I think sometimes you kind of forget about that and how much you have to work to get that. That's not God-given. That's like hours and hours of honing that, so you make it consistent.
Yeah, I was saying earlier with Steve Finnis sitting beside me but most players, most batsmen, when you look at the way they play, and if you're a bowler, you assess them. You might say, well, he's a really good player of fast bowling, but you might talk about spin, or you might talk about if the ball nips back, or if there's this and that. There's often a but. That's not really the case with Root. He just seems to have everything covered. Great player of fast bowling, great player of spin bowling, his front foot, his back foot. He doesn't get wound up with contests with bowlers. He doesn't get sucked into duels. Just everything. He just seems to have batting covered.
Absolutely, and I think even everyone has a slight flaw in their technique. Even I always think Dravid was one of the great examples of that. I think he scored over 13,500 runs, one of the all-time greats. But you think, God, you could nick him off on that fifth stump. Do you know what I mean? That fourth, fifth stump. But how his technique kind of got himself a little bit out of trouble with negating that was I found that amazing. But you always think there was something to target. Rooty's one is even smaller than that. The only area you could possibly say, probably two slight areas of Joe Root, isn't it? We're nitpicking. This is not like criticism or anything like that. It's probably when the ball bounces a little bit outside of stump, he can nick. That kind of back foot guide he does so well when the pitch is slow there. He
went through a phase of perhaps guiding out to gully a bit, that sort of area.
Yeah, and occasionally nicking it there, very occasionally you can get him LBW with his head falling over it a little bit when he aims too square. But they're still world-class areas he operates in on those areas. So 99.9% of the time he will hit them for four, or a single, or whatever he chooses to do. So that's the only two areas that you could probably say to Joe Root, if you're trying to ultra-analyse his technique, there's slight weaknesses, but they're still world-class strengths as well. Does that make sense, what I'm trying to say? And that's kind of why I think he is just this consistent machine run scoring. And there's other geniuses, aren't there, in the world who can play genius innings, but they had, slightly, they're a lot more inconsistent. Well, Joe Root kind of isn't that, isn't he? He's kind of that genius with consistency, which is kind of like the ultimate, really.
Yeah. Tell me about his character, Alistair, because before he became captain, he was a bit of a joker, a bit of a larrikin, had a bit of a laugh. Captain, I think, made him more focused, a bit more serious, because I guess you have to be as captain. But then we're starting. Well, we began a year or so ago to see that side again of Root, a big smile on his face and so on. Is that a fair comment? I mean, does he sort of strap on a cricket face when it comes to batting? I mean, underneath there is this character who likes a bit of fun.
Yeah, he definitely likes a bit of fun. I think obviously he's matured probably as he's grown up a little bit in terms of, you know, that kind of when we first saw him in that change room. But again, it was that great kind of, you know, breath of fresh air of someone. You almost couldn't believe his luck. I know I listened to that little bit of like when he got called up for, you know, the India tour, and obviously that interview is quite, you know, he's very sensible and doing a very media ECB interview. But actually, that's not Joe Root at all. And I don't remember him being like that at all on that tour. You know, except when kind of on the media. Every time else he was bubbling around, he's always up to something in the changing room, but with absolute focus on his batting. So like all that kind of other stuff. But when he got to his cricket, he still had a smile doing it, but there's that kind of like, you know, I suppose it's probably a baby-faced assassin, kind of that horrible cliche, but kind of, you know, smiling, make around, but deep down there's that real desire and determination. And now, you know, 12, 13 years later, we've seen that.
And with his preparation, Alistair, I mean, was he a batsman who was always looking at his technique? Was he always tinkering around with things? Was he always working on things in the nets? Or was he someone who would simply, you know, go out and play and be happy with the rhythm that he was in at the time and just go out and bat?
No, he was always working. He's always working on something, always looking, you know, to kind of like, you're always like trying to manage your game, aren't you? You're always trying to manage your, you know, batsmanship. So there might be something he's not quite happy with in his previous innings. So be trying to manage that, trying to work out, you know, how can I get slightly better at that, or how can I get it back up to the level it should be? So he was always tinkering in a very, very structured teamwork, in a very structured method, that makes sense. Like his bubble, as you used to call it, like his protected bubble of his batting was so big anyway. But he's always had something he was focusing on, trying to get better at, and that's why he can keep on doing the stuff he's doing. Yeah, I mean, it's just a pleasure to watch him bat now, isn't it? If you've been like, you just take everything else. He's so easy on the eye that it's just easy watching. Now, Steve Smith, great player, hasn't got that ease on the eye. Rooty does have that. And I was also talking to Nathan Lehman, who was, you know, he was around early on, and he said when you throw at him, it's like throwing at a wall in terms of the amount of times it kind of just kept coming. You know, you wanted straight drives, he'll just hit them all the time, consistently hit them out of the middle of the bat. And he said he had never seen anyone do that. You know, like there's always people mistiming one, even today. You know, how shocked he was when he had, I think it was on about 60 odd. There was a slight in-swing, might reversed a little bit, and he tried this drive, and the inside clothed it to mid-wicket. Like, if I was playing that shot, that's fine. I haven't quite got it right. It wouldn't bother me. He got angry at himself. It was like, how have I done that? Do you know what I mean? He was so angry, like. And then he kind of thinks, right, what have I done? And then he puts it straight away, back it straight onto the next ball. And I think 2 balls later, he clipped the next one through mid-wicket like he should have done. But kind of that shows the level he's operating. He's not happy with an inside half of the bat. Well, actually, I was perfectly happy with an inside half of the bat.
Well, I think you're doing yourself down a bit there, Alistair. I mean, the feeling is clearly that no Englishman is likely to get close to this, simply because of the Test cricket restrictions these days and the amount that's likely to be played into the future and so on. But what about getting to the top of the tree? I mean, all those players who are above him, the 4 that are above him, are all long retired. Can you see Joe Root there overhauling Sachin Tendulkar at the top?
Oh, I can do. I think when I retired, I thought, you know, will Rooty break? Like, will he break like the record of, you know, 12,000 whatever? And I thought, do you know what? There's every chance he will. You know, there's, you know, the only thing I thought would be the captaincy and the effect of captaincy, and then the hunger that kind of takes out of you. So I think he's like overcome that hurdle in terms of, like, you know, hasn't seen to that effect. I think the fact that Ben Stokes has taken over the captaincy, you know, being such good mates, has really helped, you know, that kind of relationship. For, you know, you'd say Sachin's probably still favourite. Just I'm giving him 51-49 because when you got runs on the ball, still 3,000. It's still quite. They're still there. Yes. They're on there, and you know, and you know, he's been so lucky with injury. With, you know, all great, like, players who play for a long period of time have been lucky with injury. You just never know what's quite around the corner. But you know, I can't see. It'll have to be something like that, or something which happens, you know, which I can't see happening in terms of for him to kind of stop that, because I don't think he's going to lose that hunger. I don't think he's going to lose that kind of, like ability to keep driving himself forward for the next 2 or 3 years. And the only little hurdle you could say in the way of that is always something happens around Ashes series. It has done in years, in years past, and it will be in years present. So Ashes away in 14 months' time, there's always a story about every Ashes series and what the damage or not damage happens after it. So I think Sachin's 51%, Root is 49%, but if I was a betting man, I'd put it on Root.
And that's the one thing he hasn't done, 100 in Australia, so that will drive on. Have you sent him a little message yet? Have you sent him a text? They come in here to Multan, you know.
No, I haven't. Not yet, because they're not allowed their phones, are they? So I've got a few hours to think about something to write.
What's he going to say? You're not to say "well played, Rooty," full stop, are you?
Well, I might do, because then that might just be like, it might be just a simple thing, and then you get a bit of a joke, and then you kind of like laugh and talk about something else. But I don't know. I do have to think about. Gucci got me a fantastic bottle of wine for breaking the record, so I'm going to have to think to do something. I'd quite like to probably crack open that bottle of wine with Gucci and Rooty and have it and go for dinner or something. Do something like that. I don't know, but I will send something, Agus, don't worry.
I know you will. That sounds great. Alistair, look, thanks for talking to us. I know you've been on the school run. And thanks. No, really appreciate you talking to us. And yes, you were thoroughly magnanimous. I know you sent me that message, as we knew you would be. So thank you. Take care of yourself. We'll see you soon.
Cheers, Agus. Cheers, guys. Travel safe.
Cheers, Alistair. Right, there we go. That was nice, wasn't it? And he was literally on the school run, parked up somewhere and chatting to us, which is great. And I think, as we saw during the summer with the centuries and so on, I mean, records there to be broken, and Cookie reigned supreme for a while, and now it's Joe Root's turn.
Yeah, so he is magnanimous, isn't he, and very humble about what he achieved as a player. But today is Joe Root's day, and it quite remarkable that he's got there with such serenity, and I think, like we've all referenced, he looks like a man who's not done yet. He looks so focused on what's going to happen in this game and then into the future. You wouldn't bet against him going past Sachin.
That reaction is still just, I haven't had a chance to go away and think about it yet. Would it have looked ridiculous in a sparsely populated ground of Pakistanis if he'd gone rushing through, waving his bat and whooping?
Well, I think he wants to show respect as well. Joe Root is such a respectful person. He's a fantastic family, fantastic upbringing. He's got so much respect for what Sir Alistair Cook achieved. I don't think he'd have wanted to belittle that by doing a big celebration or anything. So it will mean so much on the inside to him.
Yes.
But I think it's a mixture of those two things, wanting to show a lot of respect to Sir Alistair and the job to do still to save this game.
Yeah, and it is. Cricket is we always talk about it's a team game played by 11 individuals. And I guess if with a big task ahead of them in this game, and there's still a lot of batting to go for England to be safe and then to push on from there. I don't know, perhaps if you're sitting in the team, you do see an individual celebrating his own performance when actually there's a big team on. I don't know, I'm just trying to think, because it was so subdued. In fact, it was non-existent.
Just a raise of the hand.
Yes,
wasn't it?
but even that was late.
Yeah.
It wasn't immediate. It was interesting. I know someone who'll shed some light on that. It's his dad. Hello, Matt.
Hello, Agus. How are you?
Well, I'm very well. I'm again really delighted that you've found some time to speak to us. Thank you. Were you watching? What did you think? Were you expecting that sort of response?
Yeah, I was really. I think he probably knew he'd gone past. You know what he's like.
Yes.
No, we were watching it on the iPad. So yeah, big day. What a night it's going to be tonight. It's going to be a celebration, I think.
When we listen to the other celebrations, though, he's jumping about and waving his bat and so on. I don't know. There was nothing at all, was there?
Well, it's quite modest, isn't he? So he just wanted to play it down a bit low key, you know.
Yeah. And so how do you feel about it? I mean, there was obviously an air of inevitability about it, but were you sitting watching anxiously or just quite calmly?
Not anxiously, really. No, I just as we say in Yorkshire, chuffed to bits. There was a degree, as you say, a degree of inevitability about it, and Obviously, we've got 3 Test series in Pakistan and 3 Tests in New Zealand before the end of the year. So there was a good chance he was going to get 70 runs in 6 matches.
It's great to have Matt joining us for his thoughts. So no, he's gave the view, didn't he? Just a modest and just
very humble and respectful of the game. And I think that's one thing about Joe Root is he's so respectful of the game. And I think that's part of the reason why he scored so many runs across the course of his career. He's never felt as though he's cracked it. I don't think if you ever speak to him, he'll never feel as though he's completed the game. He shows it respect. He looks to improve all the time. Remains humble with it, and you mix those things in with an insatiable appetite to score runs and just be out there in the middle, not wanting the limelight, but wanting, as you say, you referenced that it's a team game played by individuals. You need that selfishness to want to be out there, to be the person who drags your team through so many tricky situations as he has done.
And he does have these targets, doesn't he? I mean, for someone in his situation now, very senior player, very experienced, batting, but he has got these little focus points now to get to the top of the tree, which must be good.
It must help, definitely, having those things and those bits to tick off as you go through your career. And you recognise those bits. They give you something to drive towards, and you do need things when you're in the latter stages of your career, things to focus on outside of your own game, that gives you that drive to then go to the next stage, and those milestones give him that.
Let's see if we can connect more cleanly with Yorkshire, shall we? Matt, are you still there?
I am, but I'm in South Wales, I'm afraid, today. My young son Billy's getting married this afternoon, so...
Well, you see, let's just talk about that. What sort of ridiculous day this is in the Root family, eh?
Yeah, I think the bubbles will be coming out later for sure. Absolutely.
But that's fantastic, and to have 2 sons playing professional cricket as they are, and it must have been difficult for you with Billy down there in Glamorgan and Joe doing what he does and so on. It, as a parent, has it been quite difficult being split between the 2?
It was quite tough when they were young because obviously, both playing age group county cricket, we were having to be in different counties on the same day.
But it is difficult, isn't it? And as we talked earlier, parents, I'm sure, will relate to that. But when you've got one who's such high profile, and you've got the other who's got a perfectly decent professional career, but how you do divvy up that time, I'm sure parents will kind of recognise that.
Yes, it would be unbelievably challenging, and just to help Joe stay humble. Your family is such a grounding place for you as a player. It is the place, your safe place that you go back to, where you can feel no judgment and you're loved regardless of what happens on the pitch, whether good or bad. And it's good environments like that around you that really do help you as a player, I think, navigate the really tricky moments and the good moments. If you can remain level throughout your whole career, as it seems as though Joe Root has been able to do.
We'll get Andy Zaltzman in here to give just 1 or 2 stats along the way of Joe Root's journey to this magnificent achievement. But that driver again, Alistair was talking about Australia. Australia's not been a happy hunting ground for Joe.
No.
As a batsman, as a captain, it's not gone well for him. He was dropped there, of course, wasn't he? I think the only time he's ever been dropped in his career, I think, is he missed 2 matches. That one, and one I think when his wife was giving birth to their first child. So that's quite a remarkable run as well.
It is. He averages 35, doesn't he? But hasn't scored 100 down there. Hasn't clearly won a series, as England haven't won since 2010-11. So I think when you look back on your career as a player, and I only played 36 Test matches, you do remember the records, and Joe clearly will remember these run scoring records. But it's those big series that you want to win away from home. And I think if Joe Root were to be the leading men's Test run scorer and then win an away Ashes and have a big part to play in that will feel like the final piece in his cricket puzzle. I think he's got a World Cup, he's got a away win in India, away win in South Africa, multiple Ashes at home. That Ashes win away whilst making a contribution, I think would put the final tiny piece in the top corner of the puzzle of a glittering career.
Yeah, I wonder why Australia hasn't quite worked for him. Andy's here, he can tell us what his average actually is in Australia, where he's batted in all sorts of different positions too, isn't he? But it's interesting as to why he's found that difficult.
Overall 14 tests in Australia across 3 series, 892 runs, average 35.6, 9 50s 8 of them in the last 2 Ashes series across 10 tests. So it's not like he's failed in Australia. He had a difficult first series in 2013-14 when he was a young player in a collapsing team. But since then, he's scored consistently, but without making those major innings that sort of define and turn matches. So that's one of the very few little glitches in his career. Up until 2020, another you could have pointed to was his conversion rate. Just 17 centuries out of 66 50-plus scores. Since when his conversion rate has been phenomenal. Over half of his 50 scores since the start of 2021 he's converted into 100. So he's rectified that one sort of minor blemish, particularly when he compared him with Kohli and Smith and Williamson, who had superb conversion rates in the same period. If you look at his consistency since his really breakthrough year in 2014. Now, sort of across 11 calendar years of Test cricket, only once has he averaged below 40 in a calendar year. That was 2019, when he averaged 37. So still pretty decent. So that just unbelievable consistency in scoring in all areas of the world. In Asia, averaging 45, specifically in India, averaging 45 over 15 tests. There aren't many gaps in his career, but I think, as you were saying, that failure to have a major impact in a series in Australia, I guess, would be something that he would really be desperate to achieve.
And also from a bowler's perspective, Finney, he's done this through being the most targeted member of the team. Yeah. I mean, every effort, every energy, bring the main bowler back, all of that sort of stuff, because as soon as Joe Root comes in, and he's managed to flourish.
Yeah, and the captaincy as well. I think the remarkable thing amongst that is he didn't play in a particularly successful team when he was captain. I think Zolt's referenced his win-loss ratio was very good, but they didn't win big series when he was captain, and ended up falling on his sword. To retain the run scoring that he did throughout that time, usually when a captain's struggling and he's towards the end of a tenure, that he gets knocked over all the time, his mind's on other things, he's able to insulate himself and create that bubble that Alistair talked about around his batting that protects it from every other part of his game, and the ups and downs outside of that. That bubble around his batting is so protected, and something that retained itself throughout his captaincy. I think one thing about him in Australia, and Alistair referenced that as well, the one tiny area of weakness that I can think when I'm thinking about Joe Root is that back foot straight bat punch that he plays, or guide towards backward point and deep third. With the angle of Hazelwood and Cummins from over the wicket, angling it in and getting that ball to move away from back of a length in Australia, you just imagine it catching the edge. And I can visualise him getting out like that a few times when he's been well set in Australia. So I'd imagine that's something that he's already 14 months before he arrives at that series that he's thinking about.
Alistair also talked, Andy, about him getting in, and he was talking about the number of times he'd scored fewer than 10, for instance. And these stats can prove people right or wrong, but he reckoned that he's got a very high ratio of getting double figures and moving on from there, as opposed to single figure failures.
For a lot of his career, we talked about his 50 to 100 conversion rate wasn't great in Test cricket, but he was scoring a phenomenal number of 50s. I think it was almost one every 2 innings for a prolonged period of his career. Once he got to 25, he had an amazing conversion rate of quarter centuries into half centuries, which is not a stat we look at often, but in terms of the consistency of run production he had throughout his career, I think does show us a lot about Root as a player. Another thing that wasn't great earlier in his career was his second innings record, and that's another thing that's improved vastly in recent times, averaging 66 since the start of the Bazball era in second innings specifically early in his career. Most players average less in second innings than first innings as the game gets more difficult. So he had a reasonable record, but there was a big gap between his first and second innings records, and that's another aspect of his batting that's significantly improved during these last 4 years.
Right, thanks everybody. Thanks everyone for taking part in that. To Alistair Cook and to Matt Root in particular. Sorry we couldn't get a better connection through to Matt, but I do hope they have a brilliant celebration in South Wales as Billy Root gets married today. What a day for the Root family. Joe becomes the highest scoring Englishman in Test history, and his brother gets married. So I hope they have a fantastic day.